Unfortunately, we do have Hawaiian in here somewhere. Just let Paul know.
Ofcom have published their roadmap for how they're expecting to implement this stuff.
It's not just me, the Hawaiians all go. The Hawaiians are popular.
So to carry on the good news, some acquisition anxiety.
David and Ben are having trouble with the HDMI interface.
I did a dance last night. I won't do a dance tonight. So what was going on with Kate's photo? Thank you. Good evening and welcome to Cloud Native Media number 13. How is our luck today? Poor 13, unlucky for some. So hopefully, we've got a bit of a different setup tonight. We've got some cameras from David, and so yeah. But I look, it's always by the seat of our pants here at Cloud Native Media. So it's great for you to come. Who's been here before? And who's new? Hey, fantastic. Love to see you. Love all the new people and everything else. What's been happening in the world? Apparently the M25 was shut for a weekend or something, and this was a bit of a disaster for people. It's just a road or something. Anybody affected by that? No. The weather was nice today. Apparently, it's the first day of spring. So apparently, it's the day when officially the days become longer than the nights. So a bit of a cheer for that. Yay! So it's all the way to summer. So what have we got coming up today? Dan is going to talk about the live production Exchange API hackathon, which is fantastic. And then later on, we've got Ren, who's going to talk about mobile phones and media, which absolutely sounds like something to geek out on with all those old phones and stuff. I'm really looking forward to that one. So who are we? An informal group. We don't have a constitution. We don't ask you to pay membership. We just ask you to come along and enjoy these evenings and learn something. And thank you very much for doing so. We have a code of conduct. It's important. I will leave you a moment to read it. What's cloud? My definition is computing infrastructure dynamically defined and controlled by software. It doesn't really matter who owns it. It doesn't really matter how many people own it. The point is that you're using software to scale and deploy your IT or your computing infrastructure. What's cloud native? This is really from a talk we did some months ago now that David came up with. This is really summed up by saying we do things differently in cloud than we do on premise. And the whole point of that is that if you don't do them differently in cloud, why would you use cloud in the first place? Why are we doing cloud native media? Well, it's about collaboration. It's about bringing cloud people, media people, tech people, lots of different people with different skills together, because we can't all know everything. And we have to work together to make the best results. And we want you to subscribe. You may have noticed I've changed the order of these slides just to keep you on your toes. We want you to subscribe. I did a dance last night. I won't do a dance tonight. I will just say, no dancing today. No dancing today.
On a separate note, feedback is welcome.
Feedback is welcome, yeah. So, subscribe. There you go. Organisers, after the little banter about the photos last time, obviously we've taken it upon ourselves to change the photo. Okay, all right. But it's better than the one I put in last night, yeah? Yeah. All right, okay, yeah. Good. Organisers, they're organisers. These are sponsors. I'm falling apart tonight. It must be that unlucky 13. Who's speaking on behalf of TechX tonight?
Hello everyone, I'm Mark. If you haven't guessed by now, I work for TechX. TechX provide live streaming solutions for the media industry, major critical flows. If you want more information, visit our website.
See, it's easy when you try, isn't it? Who's next? Dan.
Thank you. And our news this month is the hackathon, which I'll be talking about later. And it's great once again to all have you here at 64 Newman Street.
Thank you very much. I'm David. I'm Director of Livewire. We provide small engineering teams that work with cloud native and Kubernetes infrastructure to help your businesses improve, implement, and extend your cloud and cloud native needs. So thank you very much.
Excellent. Fantastic. And we do want more lightning talks. We haven't got any lightning talks specifically tonight, but mainly because one of our lightning talks got upgraded. So please, we've got cnn.live. It's buried there somewhere, but there's a link to fill in a form if you want to do a talk. And we'd be very pleased to have contributions from all across the board. Let's go through and do our diary. We have got a lot of events coming up. It's the event season, I think. So tomorrow night, Simti is visiting Eviden. I think some people are, is that how you say it? Eviden? Eviden, Atos, yes. So I think some of you are going to that. And on Friday, there's this Univision event, which sounds fascinating. It's a sort of students' Eurovision type thing, which actually sounds really interesting, produced and I guess performing by students. I don't know a lot about it, but it sounds great. 3rd of April, Cloud Native London. 4th of April, London DevOps at MasterCard. One of my favourite meetups, London DevOps. I know David goes as well. It's always good tech info there. Not tomorrow. No, it's moved from tomorrow, thankfully, to next week, so it doesn't clash with SIMTI. Brilliant. And then NAB. Is anyone here going to NAB? Yeah. Good luck. Enjoy the flights. Enjoy the jet lag. We're back on the 17th of April, so if you're going to NAB, I guess you won't be here. And then, we got some summits. We got AWS, DTG, ABC. No, sorry, not ABC. I'm making that up. MPTS. It's all acronyms. So that's all the stuff that's coming up. And we've got some dates. This is the same slide as last month, really. So these dates, of course, are subject to change because life strikes, etc. But that's what we've got in the diary at the moment. We've managed to be here for the first one. So hey, one down. Oh, sorry, did I jump the gun? You got it. Good. So now we on to the news section, everybody's favourite section, the news section. What's been happening in the news? So Ofcom, this is probably the biggest one today. Ofcom have outlined an implementation of the media bill. The media bill is currently going through Parliament. I think it's in the Lords somewhere. So it's going to be probably law by the summer sometime. And Ofcom have published their roadmap for how they're expecting to implement this stuff. And I think it's summed up by what I put on the left here. On the one hand, we've got some flexibility and deregulation. On the other hand, we've got prominence and protection. And I guess, reading between the lines here, a lot of this is all about positioning UK domestic media in such a way that it's sort of protected and ring-fenced and can compete with the global streamers and the global giants. So by flexibility and deregulation, there's more flexibility for ITV, for the public service broadcasters. ITV, I think, are going to be able to put the news on streaming if they want to meet their local news commitment. And then the prominence and protection is all about sticking them on the EPG and in a prominent place. And so EPG providers or streaming platform providers, so Amazon, Roku, etc., will have to abide by that. We've got freedom for C4 and S4C. I think you've probably heard about that, C4 being allowed to do their own productions. I think S4C are going to get a bit more of a wider remit to serve the Welsh community wider than just Wales. And then we've got more regulation for VOD. And I guess the subtext here is obviously the domestic catch-up VOD is already regulated because it's regulated by Ofcom for domestic, but there's regulation coming in for the big global VOD platforms, and lots of interesting stuff about that. So accessibility is part of that. Fairness and balance and all of those things will apply, and we'll see how that plays out with platforms like YouTube, for example. So interesting. And then finally, radio, not left out, kind of same ethos being applied to radio. Regulation of radio has actually not changed for about 30 years, so it's quite a big change. So, for example, Ofcom are no longer going to regulate what music radio stations can play, and they're no longer going to specify where radio programs have to be made. So those are two sort of key pillars in the historical regulation for radio, and they're both being swept away. Again, with this idea that protecting the UK domestic media, and on the prominence side, again for radio, the smart speaker industry, for example, is going to have a must-carry requirement for licensed radio stations in the UK. So you know, Alexa or you know, Google, what do they call it now? Google Nest thingy. They keep rebranding it, but all of those smart speaker type devices will have to carry UK licensed radio stations. So that's the Ofcom stuff. Moving on. We've had more bad news in the commercial media space. So ITV did not announce this sort of 61% decline in profits, which is pretty brutal. But we've seen this across the board, and I mentioned it last month. This massive advertising slowdown. Obviously, interest rates have gone up, and that's now starting to kick in, and everybody's starting to feel that in terms of spend, and a lot of startups and you know, what would have been VC funding is all kind of dried up for a lot of that stuff that was actually not, apart from anything else, was paying for a lot of advertising. So CloudFront, embedded points of presence. I think some people probably saw this and thought, oh, what, they're not doing that already? But equally, I think we know that people like Akamai have already got embedded POPs within ISPs and mobile operators. But CloudFront is now going to have that. How far AWS have actually got in terms of negotiating those agreements with ISPs and paying for them and installing them, we don't know, but they tend not to announce stuff unless it's really ready to go. So one assumes that they've got somewhere. Globally, how that's going to pan out, we're not sure, but it's one to watch. And I've mentioned sort of CDN wars here. I think I'm certainly seeing a lot of activity in the CDN space. So there's a lot of interest in building out CDNs, and I guess this is partly because, again, the penny pinching is going on, as it were, the squeeze, and you know, everybody's looking for some cost savings, and obviously streaming is eating a lot of bandwidth. So CDNs probably are seeing an opportunity and expanding. You know, and I know we've also had people like Varnish trying to really sell their product as building their own CDN, to build your own CDN with. Oh yeah, and there's this cyber attack at Fujitsu. Yesterday announced apparently. So, yeah. Don't know much about the cyber attack at Fujitsu. Apparently, it's some sort of ransomware. You know, they were talking about actually machines in management and you know, executive PCs being compromised and data being exfiltrated and stuff like that. So that's sounded pretty grisly over in Fujitsu. As I say, you know, yeah, someone's revenge for Horizon, or maybe probably just some chancer having a go. I also heard news about there was some. I haven't got a slide about it, but there was some esports competition where like the leading player got hacked live while he had 200 streams or something, and that happened last few days. And that's another really interesting security development, because apparently it's made the gaming community now suddenly get really interested in security. And yes, finally. Finally, yeah, you see. So what was going on with Kate's photo? I mean, honestly, I mean, you can't even unravel it. I mean, it looked like she took, or somebody took a bunch of photos and they tried to merge them all together, which is what I mean by composited photo. They tried to merge them all together with all the kids smiling and stuff. I need this thing. Well, fair enough. But so the conspiracy theories are going wild. I mean, she's got a body double apparently, and other crazy stuff going on. So I kind of feel sorry for her, but I think it's also interesting to see this play out in terms of the media trust debate. So a lot of people saying, oh, well, this is why we don't trust the media. Then obviously people like Reuters nuking the photo because they say, well, people won't trust us if we circulate this. So really all a bit bizarre, and I think something worth keeping an eye on. I think the full story may come out, or it may not. And that's it from me. Cloud Native News, David.
Thank you very much. Welcome to CNN. Here we are. So to carry on the good news, some acquisition anxieties. So I can't remember if this was the last meetup or the one before. I'll skip to the VMware, Vexing VMware. When I think it was just before Christmas, so it would have been the January one. See, I can do dates. They announced that the acquisition of VMware went through from Broadcom, and everyone was like, "This is bad news. This is not gonna end well." And it hasn't ended well. So surprise. What they've done is they have what you could, to people who are not aware, VMware sell a sort of platform for your own private data centers, so you can have your own private cloud. And up until last year, what people were doing is they were going in and were buying perpetual licenses. So like, right, I want to buy version X of this specific piece of software with these specific sorts of services and features, and I'm going to give you this chunk of cash and go away. And that was it. But now Broadcom have come in and said, yeah, we don't do that anymore. They don't exist. You can't get a perpetual license for any of our new versions. So what they're doing now is they're moving people to a subscription model. And that's causing price hikes up to, 1,200%, which is quite a lot. And one of the reasons for that is it's generally more expensive because you're paying a perpetual license every year instead of the one-off. But also, VMware are pulling a little bit of an interesting sleight of hand, where on one hand they're claiming that they are reducing the cost of a particular subscription, but they're only offering it as part of a bundle. So you're having to get all these other features and all these other services that you don't necessarily want as part of that bundle, which is artificially increasing the overall cost of your subscription. So there's been various interviews with customers, and they're saying around 20% of customers at the moment are seeking alternatives, at the moment. And probably the other 80% haven't really had the negotiations or understood what their next cost is going to be. So there's concerns around the slowdown that this would cause, where the money's going to be pulled away from this. It's going to be pulled into this and pulled away from other departments, other projects, other innovations. It's a bit of a shame. So moving on to better, Hashicorp Hearsay. All hearsay, completely. But there's been a lot of strong rumors coming out that Hashicorp, who, again, from a previous talk, we mentioned, changed their licensing model from being an open source license to being a business license, where they've, look for previous. There's lots of information around that. But they're setting themselves up to be acquired. This is all part of their process, is they're trying to protect themselves so that they're acquirable. I cannot stress how important Hashicorp has been over a number of years to open source infrastructure, cloud native infrastructure. Their tool sets have been pivotal. They've been held up as a poster child for how to run an open source business. So their tools run deep in a number of different infrastructures and in other different projects. Over the last 3 months, we're seeing a lot more other projects like forks, like OpenTofu, which is a fork of Terraform, taking shape. And I expect with this, we're going to see a lot more projects moving and forking. So one to look out for. Anyway, something rosier. Okay. At the moment, we've got CloudNativeCon and Kubecon is happening right now. Well, no, they're having beers now, but earlier in the day it was happening. So some of the announcements. The conference made CNCF a lot of money. And I was going to do this as 2 days of announcements. So this was day 1 announcements, and there was going to be day 2 announcements. And the day 2 announcement was basically, we have 400 new members. So they made even more money, is what they're saying. So away from that, Istio, which is a service mesh, it's a networking layer, network abstract that runs in a number of Kubernetes clusters. They've announced the beta release of ambient mode. And such a great name. We said ambient mode. But that's a really fancy way of saying, when we built this, we had an idea and it was wrong. And now everyone else is doing it another way. We're going to build it that way. But we're going to call it ambient mode instead of we cocked up mode. So that one's free if you want to use it. So they've released the beta of that, so that's 1.22. And that's moved on at pace. So when they were originally talking about ambient mode last year, they were setting timescales of like 2-3 years before it was going to be stable. And essentially what it is that at the moment, every single container has, or every single, I'll say container to simplify it, has a sidecar, has an opposite, an Istio container next to it that does lots of things. That is not very efficient. And every other, well, I say, yeah, pretty much most all the other service meshes, they have a centralized service and everything kind of passes through that. And that's what ambient mode is. Next one, open telemetry. I think I've mentioned again this project previously. Really important project for cloud native and cloud in general. So over the last, I was talking about this earlier, whenever there's a new sort of move into new technology or orchestration technology or infrastructure technology, the first people that arrive are telemetry companies. The first people who try and sell you anything are people like, we can do logs in that system. You know, serverless, we can do logs. We can do monitoring, we can do metrics. They're the first ones to turn up and try and sell you something. And then what happens is it splinters the entire community. Everyone sits in their own little proprietary bubble. All of their data sets and their data and their information is proprietary. All the information they get out is proprietary. All the information is stored in proprietary backend in a service and a vendor that you pay for. And there's been a big shift over the last 2-3 years to create standards. To go, actually, I don't want a vendored standard for how I pull out this information. I want it to be an open standard so I can start picking and choosing where I send stuff and how I consume stuff and where it goes, and making sure I can swap out one vendor for another. And for a number of years, or to recently, you've had logs, you've had metrics, but now you've got profiling. You know, and if anyone knows, profiling is just the ability of being able to go into a process and go, right, I'm going to record what's happening in the context of this process as well as the context of the network for this transaction, and it gives you like a slice of exactly what's going on for, say, a request. It's a very, very powerful tool. And up until now, there hasn't been a universal standard or a standard for profiling. Now there is. So that's really, really important for performance improvements. Again, based on all the hits. Based on last conversation, we talked about Weaveworks, and unfortunately they closed their doors, but their projects do live on. And one of their projects, Flux CD, within days it was rehoused with another company. But now, ahead of this, a number of substantial businesses have thrown their weight behind it and said this is a very fully supported project, it's not going anywhere. So that's really good. And the last one is FluentBit. So that's version 3. I think this is pretty important as well, because you'll find most infrastructures run this little teeny bit of software. There's a bit of software called FluentD, right? Doesn't sound that important, but say 3-4 years ago, it ran everywhere. It was the main thing that took all the logs, all the information, and shifted them off the servers. Took it in, shifted out. Problem is, it wasn't very performant. It was in, I'm not going to name the language, it was a bit bad. Java. And so what people were saying, we want some of the functionality, but we don't want this massive overhead. I don't want to give 25% of my server resource to the thing that's just shifting the logs off of my server. So it's like light. And so they came up with FluentBit, which was redeveloped in a much more performant language, much thinner, lighter, did a much smaller subset of the functionality that FluentD did, but did enough that people flocked to it. And it's still going strong. This little teeny bit of software that did this one little thing has just now grown over time and supports a huge amount of features, and probably a very similar amount of features that FluentD did at the time. So I think it's just a small announcement, but I think it's a real good example of open source where they took something like an MVP and over time just put the features in that the community needed, which is really good. And that's it for me. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So, news and sports. What happens when you need to share something? Dan's going to talk about APIs. Thank you.